Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston. He is your host, Tyler Britton. Tyler, the Kentucky Wildcats go into Neyland Stadium on Saturday night in front of a packed house of 101,000 drunk, obnoxious, annoying Tennessee fans, and they find themselves losers 28-18. This game went a lot different than I expected, especially with all the injuries. We'll talk about some of those in more depth later. I don't want to, sounds like a loser's mentality. I'm kind of proud of the fight this team put up to keep it within, keep it a 10-point game. I expected a lot worse. I think we both did with our predictions on the last episode. But what did you think about this game?
Yeah, Cam, I think Tennessee is exactly who we thought they were. They're ranked number 7 for a reason right now. So, they're 7-1 overall. They're 4-1 in the conference. They're potentially going to make a big push here to make the playoffs. So they're exactly who we thought they were here. And to your point, to your credit here, I would say we also played really hard. The same mentality you have here. Like, I'm glad we put up the score we did. I thought we could have done a little bit better. All things considered, there was a lot of injuries on the board coming into the game and then during the game, which we'll get into a little bit. We put up the same amount of rushing yards we typically do, which is what we put up 168, right around what we typically do. Averaging 4.5 yards a carry. Passing yards, all things considered, wasn't terrible. We had 192 yards passing. The only things we couldn't really get out of was the turnovers. We had 3 of those to Tennessee's 1, but we did win the time of possession for the first time, I think, in 5 or 6 weeks. So, overall, there's definitely a lot of things that I can look at and say, hey, we can hang our head up high for, but it's tough to do when you still lose. It sucks because we're 3-6 and 1-6 in the conference. But this was a game that we looked at coming into the season. We knew it was going to be tough. We played them competitive in the first half. But we can talk a little bit more about that. Cam, why don't you talk about the offense a little bit? The first half here was an interesting time. We had 10 points in the first half. Why don't you just go ahead and break down that first drive and go from there?
First drive, right off the rip, we hand the ball to Jamarian Wilcox on a 50-yard run. And the Tennessee Volunteers, fans are kind of just like, oh, what happened? Like, they were expecting for us to come in, put up no fight. Fans know we had lost 3 straight games and we weren't doing well. So, coming 50-yard run right off the rip, it was great to see. We got down there. We made plays to move the ball down the field. We get all the way to the 5-yard line. It's 4th and 2. I wanted us to go for it at the time as well. Just couldn't get it. Couldn't get the 2 yards. It's been the story of the last couple of weeks. Is this the 4th week in a row now that we've had the ball inside the 5-yard line and come away with 0 points? It's insane when you get into situations like that. You have to score. I'm with Stoops. I think I would have went for it as well. The 3 points, you even take those 3 points down on the score, we still lose this game. Offense looked very good on the first drive, and they looked very good on the second drive. The scripted plays from Bush Hamden this week worked very well, worked very efficient. And this team in general looked very good against this Tennessee front, this Tennessee defense that's been very, very good this year. I think everybody thinks about Tennessee's offense and, their spread system and how they go up tempo and all of that. That kind of gets all of the storylines. But this Tennessee defense is top 10 in the nation, and they showed that. James Pierce is a top 10, top 15 draft pick, and we kind of held him at bay with how bad our offensive line is. Going against Malachi Wood as a true freshman, I think he more than held his own. Like I said, it's hard to hang on to moral victories when you're a 3-6 football team losing 4 straight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is, we'll piggyback off this. We have a bye week here, and then we're going to go into Murray State. They're going to come to us, and, hopefully we can do to them what we did with Ohio University. But that really, I think, gears us up for the Texas game. Hopefully we take some of what we learned. I competed against the Tennessee team here, and we take over to Texas, and we can play them hardball too. It's a tough environment. Anytime you go into Tennessee, some of these tough teams and tough environments, The lights were out there going in their favor. The fans were in their favor. The referees were in their favor. Everything was in their favor. It just seemed like it was a day that Tennessee was gonna come out on top with. But overall, happy for the bounce back because we gave them a lot of grief for the last couple weeks here, deservedly so. But gave a lot of effort here. Cam, you said that you talked about the offensive line being pretty decent throughout the game here, or at least playing competitively against Tennessee's team here. The defense was obviously pretty good. Overall, what were your thoughts of how they held up with Brock in the backfield and some of the players making plays? We talk about Jamori Macklin and Barry and Brown, Dane Key getting open. Tell me what your thoughts are with the overall offensive play here.
Yeah, we averaged 4.5 yards a carry, so they ran the ball pretty well. And those always college. It's weird how they keep stats. That includes sack yardage as well. Granted, 50 of those yards came on the very first play from scrimmage. So they played. Don't get me wrong. We know what this offensive line is. It's not a good unit, but from what you're expecting from one of the best fronts in the SEC, I'm not going to tip my hat to them, but I'm going to say, hey, that's improvement. That's something we can work on. You saw a true freshman get his second ever career start going against the guy who's going to be a top 10, top 15 pick. And he held his own for most of it. He did end up giving up a sack later in the game. But, we left him one-on-one a lot, some tight end chips. We really didn't try and help him out all that much. And he held his own. So I think you're starting to see a little bit of the offensive line take strides a little bit. There's still huge holes. Like Marcus Cox actually had a solid game, but, he won't be here next year. Interior was okay. We ended up having snap problems and, false starts and stuff of that nature. But you expect stuff like that when you're playing in front of 101,000 fans. Like, it's hard to hear, obviously. So I think at some point we try to do too many adjustments, too many things like that, kind of shot ourselves in the foot with the false starts. But in general, the offensive line, I think, played pretty well. Not good enough to win the game, but good enough to keep us in it like they did.
Yeah, for sure. When I think of the offensive line here, or at least the play from our offense, it seems like this team has been one of those teams that if we can get a lead, we can continue to play with that. The problem with us is that once we get behind, which I know does happen, unfortunately, way too often this season, but once we get behind, it's not built to play from behind. When the defense knows that we're going to be passing the ball, that's where our offensive line really struggles. We've shown all year, minus last week, that we can run the ball against anybody. We can put up consistent rushing numbers every single week. Overall, I think the excitement. It was exciting to see our offensive line hold up as best they could against this team, but also not surprised that they were able to break one out for 50 yards. Honestly, we've been hoping that they could break more long runs throughout the season here. So we're excited for that here. But jumping into the second half here, Brock gets hurt. 10 minutes left to go in the third quarter, and then Gavin comes in to finish the game here. What was the difference in the team that you saw from the first half to the second half, going from Brock to Gavin?
Yeah, there really wasn't too much of a difference. There are different styles of quarterback, but you can tell that Bush did have a game plan for if Gavin does come in. He had set scripted plays for Gavin to use. I thought Brock looked great. Not great. Brock looked very good in this game. There's just small details about Brock's game that if you take it out, he's going to the next level. And by next level, I'm not saying, he's going to be a first or second round pick by any means, but he can be a good starting SEC quarterback. Just like the pass to Hardly Gilmore. Hardly sits down in zone right where he's supposed to, which is a tough thing for a true freshman to do, be able to read zone coverage and know when to sit down on a route. He sits down perfectly in the zone. Brock overshoots him. I'm not sure what. Just ball off target. Hardly has to, stretch out, try and reach out for it. He gets two hands on it, so I know all receivers are going to say, if I get two hands on it, I need to catch the ball. That's a very tough catch to ask a true freshman to make. It gets tipped up. Tennessee picks it off. It's things like that with Brock right now that are the biggest concern with me. It's just the little things turn into big things, especially when you're trying to go make the upset in Neyland Stadium in Knoxville in front of 100,000 fans. It's going to be tough. You can't have those mistakes. And then there's certain things like the 4th and 2. You can see they got 5 guys at the line of scrimmage. They got 2 linebackers that are going to blitz. It's very easy to tell. It's easy to tell on camera, on the TV. You have Demi running a flat route. He's just hit him in the flat. There was nobody covering him, nothing. Brock sits there, Gets hit, of course. We've only got 6 guys to block 7. Gets hit, fumbles. He's out for the rest of the game. So instead of picking up, a 4th and 2 and keep driving and get additional points, it was 10-7 at that time. That was right about the 50-yard line. We're looking at, potentially going up 13-7 at the worst. 17-7 is 2 scores. You go up 2 scores against Tennessee, and they're like, oh man, what's going on? Third quarter, Kentucky's got a 10-point lead. Small things like that I think will take Brock to the next level. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to come back in this game. Injuries is kind of the biggest part of this offense this week, unfortunately, and the defense. Whole team, for that matter. Injuries is the biggest part of this game.
Yeah, we'll dive into the injuries here soon. But you brought up a good point here. Sometimes it's just simplifying the game, and we talk. It's easy to talk about it from the side here when we're analyzing it and breaking down after the fact and watching the replays on TV and on the big board and all that stuff. But in the moment, it does get tough too. And we are talking about kids. As much as I hate giving them a pass for being young, thinking about in the moment, in the pressure, under the lights with thousands of fans, yelling your name and whatnot, and you're getting blitzed off the side. You have to remember that there's a running back out in the flat there. It's tough, but it's something they need to practice and make sure that they go over. This is a run-first offense too, so it is what it is. But you mentioned it. There's a lot of injuries going on right now with this team. Brock's just one of them. Why don't you break down a little bit on the injuries here for the offensive side and what that might mean, what that meant for this game, and what that might mean for the future?
Do we expect Chip Trainum to play again this season? He's played 7 snaps this season. This is a guy we talked about in the offseason. It was one of our bigger gets. You get a running back from Ohio State, and you're thinking, oh, man, this might be a difference maker for us. He's at least going to be our bell cow back, and we've gotten 7 snaps from him. So I don't know what you expect to see from him if he does come back, if he is going to play this season. Unfortunately, I hate to say it. It was a waste of NIL money on Kentucky's part. You can't predict injuries or anything like that. Unfortunately, that was where a good amount of our NIL money went, was to Chip Trainum, and we've gotten no return on investment on that one. And then just during the game this week, you had no Gerald Mincey, which might be a blessing in disguise. You and I both know he's not the best tackle. It's kind of funny that, he transferred in from Tennessee and made sure he wasn't going to be good enough to play this game. I think he kind of knew that he had to go against James Pierce the whole game. He's like, I think I'll sit this one out. And then the biggest hit during this game was Barian Brown taking that hit to the ribs. He ended up going to the hospital during the game, came back to the game, tried to give it a go on the sideline. Trainers held him out, so he couldn't get back out there. But you could just see the Tennessee's defensive scheme switch when he went off the field. They were running a lot of 2 high sets, a lot of things that, keep the offense in front of them. So it's easier to run on them. We had lighter boxes, stuff like that. And we were taking advantage of it to full effect. We were getting the ball to, guys that weren't getting the ball that much. Jamarian Wilcox had a great game. Demi was making guys miss like he does. He just doesn't have that breakaway speed. The whole offense changed once Barian got hurt. I don't know how serious it is. I haven't heard any update of any sort, but he wasn't able to come back for that game, and it changed the offense entirely, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's tough when you see a player like that go down. I'll give him props for trying to come back and try to get in. Obviously, I think the right decision. Anytime you leave the stadium, I think it's time to hang the cleats up for the week, come back, get healthy. At least my perspective here. But I'll give him credit. He's not in the NFL yet. It was still a heck of a move to try to come back. But I look at Barian, even though he's not nearly to this caliber, at least not yet. I think of like the Kansas City Chiefs with Tyreek Hill when they first lost him. Even though Tyreek Hill is obviously a huge talent in the NFL now, when he was with the Chiefs, you knew that they were going to be backing up the defenses and the field was going to be stretched open because you knew he could be starting from the right side of the field and be clear across the left side and 30, 40, 50 yards downfield. And it just stretched the play differently. The run gaps were a little bit more open. Travis Kelce was a little more open, so on and so forth. Barian Brown, to a lesser extent, much the same kind of guy. You see him on the outside. You know he's going to be blowing the top off. You're going to have to play a covered. You're going to have to put a safety over top. And to your point, that just opens up gaps. It opens up a corner route underneath or a flat route or, it pushes people back and opens up more things for the run game and so on. So definitely a big blow to your point. Hopefully he's good for next week. Hopefully we can get some of these guys back for next week. And in 2 weeks here, we can play some competitive football against Murray State. So, but we were talking a little bit about it off the air here. Why don't we shift over a little bit to defense? Tennessee ultimately was able to put up 28 points. They had a better second half here than a first half. They missed 3 field goals during the game here. Cam, what did our defense do good overall? And how were we able to keep them in check in the second half or in the first half before the second half?
Before we jump into the defense, I just want to say if we're playing competitive ball against Murray State, there's a problem. And I will be furious. If we're playing competitive ball against Murray State, we have a whole nother topic of conversation, and then it might kick us out of the SEC in general if we were playing competitive games against Murray State. But yeah, to get to the defense side of the ball, I mean, so many guys are out. I mean, let's just name some of them. Maxwell Hairston out. Jansen Dunn out. DJ Waller out. Those were your 3 top corners coming into this game. So you had to start J.Q. Hardaway, to Ryan Nichols, true freshman who was playing at Withrow last year. Like, it's crazy to think. Like, you can see it. Some of these guys just aren't ready to play, but they're kind of thrusted into action with the injuries that we got going. And then you're missing out on guys like J.J. Weaver, Derek Jackson. And then we had guys leaving this game with injuries as well. I mean, Tennessee fans were chanting all sorts of obscenities at our guys, thinking we were trying to slow them down for whatever reason. But, yeah, I mean, defense played well, all things considered. I mean, it's hard to say they played well. I mean, they still end up giving up 28 points, but one of those was, they got 7 points right after Gavin threw that pick, and then Gavin tackled him like the 10 or 11-yard line, something around there. So, I mean, there were 7 points that the offense gave them. And then, like you said, 9 points on 3 missed field goals. So you're talking there's 37 points right there on this defense. And they dropped 2 touchdown passes. So, now granted, some of those double up because they ended up trying a field goal. I mean, you're looking at this could have been a 40-point game. Feels like we were kind of lucky to stay in it that long. But it was good to see some of these young guys get in there, get some experience under their belt. Because I think that's what we're going to be talking about a lot of these last, 3 games of the season, but the last 4 weeks is looking for what we have for next year, getting some of these guys. Because normally we have that bowl game where we have a lot of extra practice. You usually have like a month of practice. We're not going to have that this year. Our season's going to be over right in December. Everybody go do your own thing. We can't really do anything until spring practice roll around. So that's going to be tough on the program. But I mean, we'll talk big picture stuff a little bit later in the season. It was good to see some of the young guys step up, even though some of them did get taken advantage of.
Yeah, they definitely got some good experience, I think. Like, to your point, let's call a spade here. It's going to be tough to get a bowl game. We're going to have to win out to get a bowl game here. And that includes winning at Texas later in the season. But to get some experience with some of these young guys filling in, I definitely think that's going to help us out long term here. Might even help us out just in the short term this season also, because they're getting reps against good competition before they go into play Texas or or home for Louisville here. So, excited to see that what our guys can do long term here. Glad they got the experience. Some tough calls. We were watching the game here. One of them being like a rugby scrum down there on the 5-yard line, trying to get into when Tennessee scored. Cam, what were your thoughts with that miss and the ref calls throughout the game here?
I don't understand what's going on in college football, especially SEC officiating this year. It wouldn't have changed the game outcome, and I get that. But I mean, we can't have 6-second rugby piles just. I mean, at one point they were actively going backwards, and then here comes their other 4 offensive linemen to push them in. Well, yeah, of course they're going to get in. They're just standing there. It happened the same thing at Florida. Remember, we were going in. As soon as we get stopped upright, whistle gets blown, play's dead, but we push them in right after the play's blown dead. It was blown so quick at Florida. And then Florida had the same thing, but they let them play the game out. So I don't know what's going on. It's happened 2 of the last 3 weeks where these like rugby scrums have been allowed. I don't even watch rugby. Who does? Who cares about rugby? No one does. This is why we don't care about rugby. We don't like rugby scrums. If you get stopped, forward momentum is stopped. That's literally in the rules. Once your forward momentum is stopped, that's where the ball is dead. They'll blow the whistle. It just hasn't been upheld. And the SEC officiating crew in general, I mean, the head guy sitting there, the end of half debacle where they gave Tennessee an extra timeout. Tennessee called 4 timeouts in the first half. I didn't know that was allowed. I guess they were just allowed to borrow 1 from the second half. I guess that's a new rule I wasn't aware of. And then he couldn't get the play time right, couldn't get the game clock right at the end of the half either. I don't want to pile on that guy because I don't know him personally, and I'm sure that's not even his full time job. But I mean, we got to be better.
And I know that's been a tough conversation over the last several years, specifically in the NFL, but I would imagine down in the bigger conferences too, finding some way to get these officials full time. Most of these officials are doing multi sports anyway. They're doing football, then they're going over to basketball, and so it makes me wonder if there's a world where they can become full time and then they can get make that their full focus and really practice at their craft, kind of like what the athletes do, and then go out there and have a better production. Because to your point, I mean, it seems like it's been getting more and more inconsistent here over the last several years. I mean, I think there's been 2 SEC teams or SEC games this year now where the student section has been so frustrated and upset they've started throwing stuff onto the field. Although it's not correct, not the right thing to do. To be clear here, it's almost warranted in some cases, especially when you get fed up throughout the game. Was it ever going to happen this game? No, I mean, it was 18-28 final score, and like you were saying earlier, the score probably should have been a little bit higher than what it was on Tennessee's side, but let's say it was an 18-18 game going into the fourth quarter, and then the fourth timeout gets called, or the Tennessee gets pushed back, or roles reverse, I guess they're in Tennessee, maybe Kentucky is running in, and then they get pushed back 5 yards, and then they run the ball in for a touchdown. Tennessee fans are going to be ticked off, and that could lead to some issues there. Again, not condoning any violence from the fans, but I mean that's been 2024 for you. So it's been a weird past few years here watching collegiate referees and professional referees making calls and not necessarily always being on the same page. One call is different from one week, one crew from the other. So, definitely interesting take there.
While we're on that topic, why not throw things on the field? Texas did it when they were playing Georgia, and the officials were just like, "Yeah, we're not trying to get hit by bottles and stuff, so we're just going to overturn the call in Texas's favor." So, I mean, why not? I mean, granted, Kentucky's probably not going to get a turnout like that at a home game until the Louisville game. Why not? If it's gonna work, they're gonna change the call and it's gonna help us win a game. If that's what's needed, I'm not saying I will throw a bottle, but I'm not saying I will not. Why not? Give your team a chance to win.
Yeah, this guy's words are not not a reflection of his employer. Me? No. No, we're co-hosts, but no violence, Cam. We cannot tell people to do that. I get your point. But referees just need to be better. I think there needs, like I said, if we can get them to be full time, we can put more processes in place that way it's a little bit easier. We talk about dumbing the game down for the players. We got to find ways and systems to make this easier for the referees. The game is starting to pass them up, and it's going downhill quick. So hopefully we can get that fixed here. Cam, why don't we jump into next week's game a little bit? We're playing Murray State. That should be an easier game for us compared to Tennessee, Texas, and some of the other ones we played. What are you looking forward to seeing most going into next week?
Well, luckily we don't play next week, so that's probably
2 weeks from now.
That's probably the best thing about that is that we can get guys, give them time to get healthy. Bad thing is with college programs, they're so loose on what they tell you injury-wise, so you never really know what's going on. Like Maxwell Hairston, like I've heard different rumors of what's going on, but Kentucky hasn't said anything, so we have no idea like what's going on with him. I mean, there's just like I'd like a level of transparency, especially when you have fans that live and breathe, like Kentucky football and Kentucky athletics. Level of transparency would be good, but getting all these guys right, getting them ready, and then at that point, it's just Murray State. I think is what you just play all the guys that you are expecting to be a part of your future. I expect to see a lot of young guys, a lot of guys that you wouldn't necessarily see a lot of if it was the Texas game or the Louisville game. That's just kind of the point in the season where we're at, where we just have to kind of almost punt on this season and try and get ready for next year, I guess.
Yeah, I hear you. Look, I mean, we're going to go to your point. Hopefully, we can get some guys healthy going into this game here. My biggest goals here. I'm going to look at this kind of like the Ohio U game. This should be a game where we know we're going to win, but we need to play like we need to play to really learn some fundamentals here or get back to the fundamentals. Look, I think the biggest goal for us is getting over 30 points again because we haven't done that. I think since Ohio. So we need to get back to that. We need to get back to some scoring plays, getting our key players back involved, getting the run game going, get the pass game going, shut down that Murray State here. I mean, I'll go over the last few games here. Murray State scored 0 points. They've been getting blown out with scores of as high as 59 multiple times, 50 plus points multiple times over the last several weeks against not so good competition. So there's really no reason why Kentucky shouldn't go in there and really think about getting the all-time record in points. That could be a very real possibility. Hopefully they can. Cam, I know you absolutely hate this stat, but the matchup predictor is saying 99% chance of winning this game. Let's take that to our advantage. Let's really go in there with some confidence and get some points here. We'll get into our scoring predictions here in a couple minutes. But what are your thoughts going into this game? What else do you see being a necessity for this team going into Murray or for Murray State coming into our house?
We're kind of past the point of trying to learn like what this offense is going to be. At this point, we know what they are. They haven't scored more than 20 points in any SEC game yet. So we know what the offense is. So at this point, I don't want to see us trying to go out there and master this offense. At this point, I don't want to say there's no point because there's still 3 games to be had. But at this point, I kind of want to try new things, try new wrinkles, see what could potentially work and could keep you in a game against Texas or could win you that game when Louisville comes into town. I want to see things like that. I want to get the young guys involved. I want Hardley involved. I want Fred Ferrier involved. I want Jamarian Wilcox to get a lot of carries. And then if Chip's able to go, I'd like to see what he has or if he has anything or if he's healthy or what's going on with that situation. It's a lot of question marks on the offensive line. Maybe you get working some of those young offensive linemen like Abaselm, some of those guys, see who all you can get involved and see how they look. That's kind of what I'm looking for the Murray State game. I'm not necessarily looking for this offense to, just go out and put up 48 points, which it'll be nice. But if they put up 48 points, do you feel better the following week about them going into Texas and doing anything on the offense side of the ball? Because I know it doesn't make me feel any better. I'd rather at least see us, gain some confidence in guys that don't have the confidence right now. They had it in the high school level. They haven't had it yet here. I'd like to see things like that start to get worked out. And, maybe get guys like Jamori Macklin a little bit more involved. I mean, he had 2 great catches for a touchdown and then a 2-point conversion. And we got to figure out, is this offensive system, is it what's holding back these players or are the players holding back the system? Right now, I'm not sure I have an answer for either one because it seems like anytime we talk about it, it's just the offensive line is the excuse for both of them. So there is nothing this offense can do against Murray State to lean me one way or another on anything going forward. I just kind of want to see some young guys go out there and eat. They've been practicing, putting their bodies on the line all season. At this point, unless you're planning on redshirting them and they've already played too many games, get them out there, get them some leadway, let the older guys get healthy, and get ready for Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there's definitely an opportunity here to get some young guys involved. Hopefully we can get some freshmen on the field and they can get some play time. They can take a look at things. Wild idea. Hot take here. We've been talking about the passing offensive line here, not really holding up. Just throw the ball the entire game. Get these guys some reps at pass blocking here. Get some nice, easy talent. Go up and down the field, make some errors, but work them out in the moment. Get that experience and do it with the young guys. That way next year we can play, really good, hopefully better passing offense, and we can balance ourselves out because we know we can run the ball. That's not the problem. We know our defense will play well against their run. Hopefully our defensive backs can come back healthy, but I think we can get some pass blocking there. That'd be nice. But to your point, I think it's more so setting up for next year too. So hopefully we get some young guys some reps, as you said. Cam, why don't we go ahead and get into our predictions for the game? What's your predicted final score here coming out of Murray State?
I'll go. It's tough because some of these games it's just piling on touchdowns after touchdowns after touchdowns. I don't think we're really looking to do that. I think we're trying to quote unquote fine tune some things, even though nothing's finely tuned on this offense. I think you're probably looking at 38-10. Of course, the Cats. I'm not gonna say the Murray State Racers are gonna come in and put up 38 points against us. At least I hope not. I've been very wrong this season on my predictions. So whatever I say goes in the exact opposite approach. So.
Well, hopefully not, because that would mean that Murray State would put up 38-10 against us. So hopefully it's not that. I think our scores are pretty similar here. I'm going to go 31-0. I actually think that we hold them to a shutout. And I don't think that we do what I was going to say, which is pass the ball the entire game. I think we run the ball. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of time on the clock to get all those points. I think 31 is probably about right. 4 touchdowns and kick a field goal. I think that's about where we're going to be at for this Murray State game here. And hopefully that prepares us enough for Texas. Maybe we can still win there, but that's where we're at for that. Cam, any last takes coming out of Murray State or even in this past game here from Kentucky?
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect to Aiden LaRosse, he had a great game against Tennessee, averaged 50 yards a punt. I have to get my punters in there. I got to show my punters some love. Aiden had a great game against Tennessee. I don't want to see him touching the field unless it's on kickoffs when he's kicking off the football. I don't want to see him play in this Murray State game. And Alex Rayner has been incredible all season. We've talked about it. I only want to see him if he's kicking extra points. I don't want to see field goals taken, and I don't want to see the punting unit on the field, even though I'm a punter myself. Aiden, you're starting to turn it around. Had a great game last week. I don't want to see you on the field unless you're kicking off. And Alex, I hope you have a lot of extra points. I don't need any field goals from you. That's all I got. Hopefully this team, gets healthy during this bye week we got. We might have a bye week episode. We might not. Depends on the news that we get. But other than that, that's all I got.
Yeah, I think we should just go ahead and give Aiden a bye week here. Maybe he can go home, see his family. He shouldn't even hit the flight for this game. We'll play it out. We'll figure it out. We'll start working on our 4th and longs and hopefully 4th and shorts and 3rd down conversions. That would be great. That would be ideal. But yeah, I like your take there. I like your final take. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining in for yet another Cats Talk podcast talking about Kentucky football. We're excited for the future here. Hopefully we can get some wins to finish out the season here. Definitely saw some pros out of this game. Some areas that we can take with us later down the season here. If you liked what you saw here today, please join us for future podcasts. We have Kentucky basketball coming out this season. Season's starting here. Cam and Jacob have already done one podcast without me. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll be back here every single week to talk about Kentucky football, so feel free to tune in to that. Make sure to share with your friends and family. Go on our social media. Give us a follow on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and others. Make sure to share that with your friends as well. Thank you so much, and go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.